This is Sportswatch on Six News. I'm Leo Puglisi. It's a big episode. There's a lot to talk about. The AFL, the AIHL, the VPL. Tin new ins also here, which is a nice return to form. We've got all three here. And we will start, though, with the Australia Cup. And that is getting underway very, very soon. We, of course, have been keenly following the various tournaments at the state level, including the Dockerty Cup in Victoria, which we've all managed to get out to at certain points. Tin, you've been really closely following this in the lead up to, of course, the official draw. What's really caught your eye in terms of who's competing outside of the A-League?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as per usual, there's a lot of very good stories coming into the Australia Cup. This year is obviously no exception. The big one that sticks out, obviously, from a Victorian perspective is, of course, Nunawading City. You can't go past without looking at them. Obviously, VPL 2 side, outside of the top division, probably won't, well, very likely will not get a shot at the championship. It's obviously a great story, but you look elsewhere, you obviously look at pretty much all the states have one or two championship contenders in there. You look at South Australia, you've got Metro Stars who could be in that national stage again come October. You look at the ACT's Canberra, Croatia, and you look at New South Wales, you've got not all the championship clubs. You've got Sydney United and Alpia, but you've also got the two, I believe they're New South Wales League One clubs. So, I mean, anywhere you look, obviously you've got some pretty reasonable, surprising inclusions, but at the end, you've also got these pretty big clubs who have sort of this history of competing at the national stage, and will be at the national stage again in October.
Yeah, Shiza, what about you? You've, as I said, been out to some games here. It's always really good when you see, the non-A-League clubs competing. It's even better when you see ones that are a tier below the NPL. We're talking two tiers below the NPL here with Nunawading City, though.
For sure. I'm actually getting out to the game at Hume City when Nunawading qualified for the Oz Cup. They won 4-0. So I was very impressed by that performance because for me, it showed that, it's not just a tournament for the A-League clubs and the best of the best clubs in the NPL. This is a VPL 2 team who a lot of people have written off against Hume City. A lot of people expected Hume City to win and qualify for the Oz Cup. But credit to Nunawading City because they were the better team of the night. I don't think Hume even got close to them. And now they've not only made the semi-finals of the Dockerty Cup, but then the Oz Cup as well. So it's a big opportunity for them and a lot of other teams in this tournament to get a win against either a big NPL club or maybe even an A-League team. So, I mean, this is why we love the Cup. There's so much opportunity. There's so many underdog stories, and it's so great to see.
I think it's possibly even more underrated, Sheza. Currently in VPL 2, Nunawading City are ninth. So we're not talking a club that's in a great promotion spot and they're constantly on the up in the NPL at the moment. I mean, all credit to them, but I mean, that just kind of adds just another level here that they've managed to go this far from a position that is a few spots off being relegated next year.
Of course. And that's why we love this because anyone can come in, anybody can, all the teams start with your state league team, with your VPL 2, VPL 1, whatever country, whatever state you're in. So every team gets the opportunity to be here at this point to make the Australian Cup. So it's why we love it. And credit to Nunawading City because, like you said, hasn't been the best of seasons. They are kind of, I'd say, closer to relegation than promotion, obviously. So they haven't had the best season, but credit to them where it's due because they were incredible against Hume. I'm sure they'll continue to do that, not only in the Dockerty Cup semi-finals, but also in the Oz Cup.
Then, of course, A-League clubs are always hungry for more success, but there are a few who, would have gone out in the regular season in circumstances they wouldn't have been happy with. Of course, you look at a club like Adelaide United, which was flying high for a lot of the season and were unable, of course, to really progress throughout the final series. You, of course, would look at Melbourne Victory, of course, your boys Western United as well. Just in terms of these top tier clubs who are in, are there any you kind of expect to have some standout performances?
I mean, it's always hard to say with the cup, isn't it? Obviously, anything can happen. That's kind of been widely discussed every year that comes into the cup. But yeah, look, realistically, I mean, your usual overachievers in the league should probably convert over to the Australia Cup. Obviously, Melbourne City will probably be thereabouts in the Australia Cup. You look at Auckland FC in their first ever Australia Cup. Whether they should be there or not, I mean, regardless, I think they'll be exciting to follow along throughout the stages when they play in the cup. Obviously, you look at teams like maybe Western Sydney Wanderers and Adelaide United. They knocked out they got bundled in the first round of the finals, the elimination final rounds. But obviously with the Australia Cup, it's a completely different ball game. all it takes is, one good game to pick some momentum going. Obviously, there's little room for mistakes in knockout football, but obviously, of course, I mean, it's cup footballs are almost an entirely different breed. So while I can't say that there's really a true favorite, I think, realistically, you could look at almost anyone, any of the A-League clubs, and you can't mathematically or categorically rule any of them out.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Auckland FC shouldn't be in it. Keep them in the A-League, but no, I don't know. I don't know. It's not for me. Keeping with, we were talking about VPL 2, we'll go up to VPL 1. Tin, you've been focusing on that competition really heavily right now. It's an interesting title race, which we've been looking at. Melbourne City currently leading that. And of course, this is for promotion into NPL Victoria next year. What have you been seeing?
Yeah, well, if you haven't been following VPL 1, all you need to know is practically Melbourne City have been dominating the league in flying colours up until recently. They were going invincible up until they lost to, believe it or not, last place Moreland City. So, I mean, no one is safe in VPL 1 pretty much from a win or a loss. You look at also just below in the other automatic promotion spot, it's Caroline Springs George Cross leading the way with 39 points, but literally right on their tails is the Bentley Greens in that playoff spot. They're both on 39 points, and then you follow the rest of the way down in the race for the promotion playoffs. It's Western United on 32, Brunswick City on 31, Northcote City on 28, and then even North Sunshine Eagles and Pauline on 27. So pretty much anywhere you look, not just in the title fight, which is separated by 2 points by 3 clubs, you look at even the promotions race. I mean, there's action all across the entire table pretty much, and every game has pretty much matters now from here, with obviously aspirations to play top flight football in the state next season.
Shezza, you wouldn't be too against a Monday night South Melbourne versus Melbourne City game next year. I think you'd be a bit of a fan of that, wouldn't you?
I would, but I'd also just as be much of a fan of our Melbourne Victory versus Melbourne City, both of their reserve teams in the NPL Victoria, if Victory stay up, obviously. So, look, there's a lot of debate on whether these reserve A-League teams, your Victories, your Cities, your Westerns, should be in State League football, should be in the NPL, the VPL, but they are here. And look, credit where it's due to Melbourne City because they've been incredible all season. You look down the table, like I said, Bentley are there, George Cross are there. So there's definitely an interesting, probably a 3-way race for the title now. Obviously, with that third promotion spot, all 3 of them have the chance of going up, but let's be real, none of them want to be in the playoff spot. None of them want to be at the end of the season. They all think they're good enough to not only win the league, but at the very least got top 2. So it's going to be very interesting come to the end of the season because we've got 3 very good teams here, and only 2 of them are going to go up automatically. So I'm very interested to see what happens here.
Yeah, and look, I mean, as we've seen, these reserves, these youth sides, they're not immune from not having success in the NPL. We've seen that again. Victory is not flying in the NPL at the moment. There's certainly a possibility of relegation, which of course, as we know, Queensland is not necessarily possible in some other leagues, but it's good we have it here. Would be huge though. Just quickly, Shezza, if City 2 titles in 1 year, two top place finishes by the end of it. Would be really significant, and I guess also provide a lot of interesting contests next year when we know how much focus there is on second tier competitions at this point.
Of course, I think City have been run really well from top to bottom this year. You look at the men's senior team, look at the reserves, you look at the women's team. It's been a very good year on the park for Melbourne City, and I've been very impressed this year by the youth development. You look at Lawrence Wong, you look at Mamedi, you look at some of these players they've had not only do well for them in the VPL, but come up to the A-League and do stuff there as well. So, look, it's been a very good season for Melbourne City. It's been a very, I'd say, heavily youth-focused season, which is why they're doing so well in the reserves. Even for Western United as well. I think they've definitely taken a youth approach, which is why they are 4th right now in the VPL and probably still could go up in all theory, even automatically. So, well done to both these teams. They've had a very good season. And for City, if they can win both the VPL and the A-League, I think it'll just be the cherry on top for an incredible year.
From the top of the VPL to the midway part of the AFL ladder now, Carlton is not going too well at this point. It's weird. You'd think, by the way, there's the conversations that have been had that they'd be, bottom 3 at this point. They are 10th on the ladder at this point. The thing is, above them, 9th, Gold Coast are on 32 premiership points. Carlton's on 24. It's a bit different to kind of the lot of what we saw last year when it was, anyone top 14 was a chance of finals. That was a great finals contest at the end of the last year's home and away season. But Carlton's not going too well. Tin, I think it's always interesting when the talks and the social media comments about, certain coaches got to go, they kind of drift away from social media and then they enter talk back and then they enter, the regular media footy shows, which we've seen this week with Michael Voss. How do you assess his kind of job security at this point?
It's not been the best season on field, and that's not difficult to argue. When realistically, this is a team that for the last couple of seasons has been, making finals. There was the prelim only 2 seasons back. Realistically, 10th isn't the sort of performance that probably anyone wanted or expected. But yeah, look, I think the big thing that jots out of my mind is, of course, you see all these comments about, I mean, with Carlton fans, obviously, they're a very vocal fan base when it comes to these things, but we've typically never been a very patient fan base for sure. But what sticks out at me is definitely, I mean, it's a very weird situation because not all the problems I did argue could necessarily be pinned on Michael Voss. Obviously, there's been issues on the field, there's been issues off the field, other stuff, but not all of it necessarily can truly be traced back to Voss, I think. So, look, is there some to blame? Of course there is. Obviously, of course, always the person at the top will always be the one that gets criticized. But look, it's a regardless, it's an interesting position to be in. I don't necessarily agree with all of the Voss out, but I think, it's not a completely unjust rhetoric, and especially, not one that's to be unexpected from Carlton fans.
Shezza, you've of course got a kind of similar fan base call amongst at least some elements regarding Essendon's coach Brad Scott, who is again, in his own kind of strife in terms of performance. Essendon's currently 13th. Mind you, that's the same amount of premiership points, 24, as Carlton at this point, further down the ladder. On percentage, how do you see kind of his performance and where he is leading the club?
I mean, look, I'm not overly impressed right now. I think there's definitely been positives this season. Essendon have had a lot of injuries. They've had, I believe, I can't even count how many debuts they've had at this point. They've had a lot of debuts, so it's been a bit of a transition year. If this sets them up well for 2026, then so be it. But look, you look at, for example, Carlton with Voss, you look at even Sydney with Dean Cox or Essendon with Brad Scott. There are some pretty big teams here who are maybe looking at sacking their coach. So it's definitely going to be an interesting period over the AFL for the next few months to see if these coaches can stay in a job at the end of the year, because I'm looking at it right now and it's pretty much just 9 teams in the top half and then a bottom 9, like you said, Carlton and Gold Coast, 8 premiership points between them. So you almost look at anyone from 10th and below as kind of having a poor season, I'd say, which is, again, very different to last season when we had, I think, 12 teams in contention for the final. So I think anyone Carlton below is probably having a bit of a rough season. And yeah, I'm sure it's obviously different for every club, but job security definitely will be safe right now for Voss. I wouldn't necessarily say it's safe for Brad Scott right now either. So yeah, interesting teams playing out here.
And we don't even have time to get on to St Kilda with Ross Lyon and all the talk around them, and there's even succession plan talks which have hit the media in the past 24 hours. They are 15th at the moment, so of course a lot of waiting and seeing. I think the problem with some of the clubs are in a bit of strife at the moment. When you think of like Sydney, you're not going to dump a first year coach. Port Adelaide, your coach is gone at the end of the year no matter what anyway. Richmond and West Coast is still new. North Melbourne is like, well, can you ever get rid of Clarko? So there's a lot of conversations that'll be had here, but clearly a lot of problems at this point. Mind you, of course, I think Richmond and West Coast are at times this year have been miles apart, and West Coast, you could almost lock them in for the spoon at this point. I just want to switch over now to the AIHL tin big finals race, which is coming up. We were talking last time about tickets are on sale. We're really excited for, of course, the 3-day finals series that'll be held in Melbourne later this year. We know who's at the top. We know how kind of set in stone that position is. But in terms of who sneaks in at 6th, it's getting a bit tight.
Yes, it is. So, obviously, quietly throughout the season, Adelaide United, well, not Adelaide United, sorry, the Adelaide Adrenaline, have started to sort of quietly pick up some form. Obviously, the top 6 have been pretty confidently set for a while now, but Adelaide obviously didn't get off to the best start this season. It was pretty well documented, obviously. A couple of buys to start the year. They had the buy just last weekend, and then of course it was a couple of losses, multiple series losses on the trot. But they've started to turn things around now. Obviously, if you haven't seen, they spoiled the party at the AIS, winning that first game against the Canberra Brave. There, they defeated, I believe it was Perth away in Perth, which is no easy feat in the AIHL. And of course, just this week or just last week they defeated the Central Coast Rhinos twice in that series. That just the past weekend. So over the weekend, over the last couple of weeks, they've put together some very solid form, and they've just one win, 2 points outside of that top six now, just behind the Canberra Brave. So where it's come from, can't really say. Obviously, it's never easy to say with ice hockey. It's a sport where the underdogs especially can thrive, but yeah, they've started to quietly pick up some form and just sneak just outside of that top six now. And obviously, come this weekend, once they get their games out with, I believe they're playing the Mustangs this weekend at home. It will be a fairly exciting series to follow. And I'm almost certain, yeah, it will be. It'll only get closer from here. They're starting to pick up some form now, which is what you need as a hockey team, and I'm sure it'll definitely be close finals race from here on out.
So, Tin, how nervous should Canberra be?
I mean, of course, you look at that AIS game. Obviously, they were pretty thoroughly challenged there by the Adelaide Adrenaline. Obviously, Adelaide have started to pick up some form. You'd imagine they're starting to look like one of the better teams that they were promised at the start of the year. And yeah, look, Canberra have had some solid form of their own as well, to be fair, arguably better form than Adelaide. So it's probably not panic stations yet, but you'd imagine sometime sooner or later they're going to have to start thinking, okay, we're going to have to start performing if we want to, defend this cup that we've got.
And I don't think the Rhinos are completely out of contention either. If I just look at points,
look, I wouldn't say the Rhinos are completely out of it. You look at the table right now, the Rhinos have 12 points, Adelaide 14, the Brave 16. For me, these have been the three weakest teams in the league. You can tell by that gap in the table between them and the North Stars. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the Rhinos are out of it. I think right now you look at the Brave, who have probably not had the best season despite everything they've done off the ice. I wouldn't necessarily have the best season. Adelaide have been picking up form, and they've got the Rhinos as well. So it's definitely going to be an interesting fight for the top six come the end of the season, because I don't think that anyone is necessarily out of it. I think they've definitely got a close race here. I'm interested to see who comes on top, because no, the Rhinos definitely aren't out of it.
All right, we will cover it very, very closely right here on Sportswatch. That is Sportswatch for this week. All past episodes you can, of course, stream whenever you want right here on Six News, and we'll keep bringing all the latest coverage, including we'll keep following the Australia Cup nice and close. And Tin might have some extra content coming out regarding that, which we, of course, look forward to. Give us your thoughts, your comments, and your tips, and, of course, share this content around. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.